Find your path in the dark and follow no false light.
Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra spoiler video. Today we have the second half of Nightfall with Diana, and we're going to talk about the day 1 then day 2 spoilers. And I gotta say, like I was really excited for Leona, they just keep getting better, so I have really big hopes for whatever the last champion is going to be. In my opinion, all signs point to Aurelion Sol, but it's not confirmed until it's confirmed, right? So wait and see. So with that, we have the Mount Targon side of Nightfall. Again, Nightfall just meaning if it's a second card you played in a turn, it gets buffed. And as I talked about in the Nocturne video, what we really missed was some kind of, cheap and sometimes repeatable enabler. And we got that with exactly Lunari Duskbringer. So it's nice that it's a one drop. So think about this, not even just playing on turn 1, right? Because maybe you're not all in focus on aggro. Really just save this until turn 2. Maybe play this into an outlooker. And then the pedal that you get actually helps you on your next turn to play another unit and not have to do that same kind of like trigger where you play unit to unit. It's now spell into a Nightfall unit to trigger it. So quite honestly, this is everything that the Nightfall archetype wanted. I mean, this is in terms of the archetypes, so not a pure Mount Targon region, but for what it enables in the particular archetype and working towards that goal, this is probably one of the strongest cards we've actually had in the entire spoiler season so far. And it's a common. It's just a one-drop common, which is hilarious, but this card is insanely good for what it wants to be doing and what it's enabling. So again, the fact that it's just a cheap one cost, you can help set up other Nightfalls and then do it the same thing a turn later. This is everything that they wanted. Now, it might not be that exciting because it's only a 2-1, right? In terms of like damage potential, it's not really that great. And you're almost never going to play this on turn 1 because it's always better to get multiple Nightfall triggers, but it's still there. It gives us an option and it's all around pretty solid. So fantastic card. It's going to see a ton of play and it is a staple for Nightfall. Moving on from that, we have the Lunari Shadestalker, Nightfall, Grant Me Elusive. 2-drop, 2/3. So again, this kind of falls in that more golden narwhal category, but you got to work a little bit more for it. And then obviously doesn't have that vulnerable tag on it, but it does have the, you got to play something first. So granting elusive, meaning again, it's going to stay on, so it's always going to have elusive, is very strong. Now, the thing that we have to keep in mind is that there's going to be some threshold of cards. Thinking back to Nocturne, and as a second we'll get to Diana, there's going to be some cap where you just want to make sure you have enough Nightfall units, and then you're probably going to want to sprinkle in some other better utility or just kind of over-the-top units that we actually haven't seen yet. So that's kind of my prediction. We'll see something big on the 25th to help enable that. Now, that said, this is just a nice card that'll chip through damage, so it's fine for like a more aggressive build. But I do wonder if there's going to be a room to put a couple stats onto this, right? Because we're in Mount Targon, we have a way to give it more even bigger stats, right? But I also like this one for other reasons. So a lot of these spoilers, as we start to think about them, and now that we've seen Diana, it's important to know that Nightfall itself is a very forced archetype. So I guess I'm going to get this disclaimer out of the way now. That Diana and Nocturne, if you're playing them together, they're obviously a pairing like Nautilus and Maokai. They're just way more straightforward in that they're both working towards the same thing. When you're trying to put them together, you're going to have a very focused deck. You're going to have a lot of Nightfall cards. However, some of these are probably going to see play outside of this deck, right? Like, Crescent Guardian can just be good in a low curve aggro deck that then suddenly turns this into a 5/3 overwhelm. Same with the Lunari Shadestalker. We know how strong Elusive is. We know how strong Overwhelm is. These could just be good units outside of this. Now, that said, I'm very excited to see them at 2 and 3 cost in Nightfall. It's great for the Nocturne card because you need to still attack with units, and they're cheap enough so it's pretty easy to combo them off with either Duskbringer, Dusk Petal, a lot of Dusk, or other kind of enablers that we're going to have here in another couple moments. So all around, I really do like Shadestalker. I think it's something you're still going to play regardless, but I would not be surprised to see if someone enables this in like a Starlit Seer style of deck where you have other buffs you're able to give it, and then you can just do like a salvage, or not salvage, but like elixir to save something into Shadestalker. It gets elusive, right? Now, is there enough elusives to make that worth it? Probably not, but just kind of that line of thinking, right? Like other ways to get permanent buffs onto this card, or again, Taric, right? Taric is going to be able to give something that whatever spells are casted on him buff to the next target. So if you have like Taric into play this, into playing like the 3/3 Grant spell, and you're bumping this up to a 5/6 elusive, seems great. So ton of potential. I think it's definitely like, you know, automatic S tier for like Nightfall style of decks. But will it see home outside of that? Maybe someone will crack the code. At least for me to start, I'm just going to stick within the kind of isolated archetype, but I would not be surprised to see either one of these see some level of play outside of this dedicated deck later on. So from there, we have the 3-drop Crescent Guardian. Again, 3/3 overall, and the stats are just nice. So like, it's a Mighty Poro like style of stats, which, you know, the trade-off here is that with the Mighty Poro, you had the Poro enablers, you had Aurora Borealis, you had Poro snacks, you had like other ways that just really file into that. Where now with Crescent Guardian, it's like, okay, cool, it's a 3/3 overwhelm. You know, if you play Nightfall, it's a 5/3. But 3 HP is pretty weak, right? So do we have challengers to keep this alive? Do we have other like stat boosting effects? Or do we just hit face with this and we don't care if it dies? Because as a 5/3 overwhelm, that's pretty significant, as we've seen with Basilisk Rider, at just being able to pressure your opponent's life total. So I'm not totally convinced, just in terms of like how I see the deck lining up, that this is going to be an all staple all the time, unless the deck is going to be way more aggressive than I maybe anticipated. But it's definitely going to see play. I know that it's going to be very strong for like a Nightfall enabler, but we have to see the rest of the Nightfall cards to really determine how many of these we're going to be playing and what does it really look like to kind of set up this curve. But all around, I mean, I like the stat line. The effect is great, so I would be very shocked if it doesn't see a good amount of play. So beyond that, we now have Diana. And let me just say, these last couple of spoilers, the artwork has just been phenomenal. And I can't wait to see her leveled up like full art, because it looks like she's actually now out in the sun and kind of battling against Solari directly. I'd love to see the full art for that, but we have to wait, you know, 4 more days at time of recording, whatever it is. All right, so what does she do? She's a 2-drop, 2/2 with quick attack, and then Nightfall, give me Challenger this round. So again, kind of thinking back to more of the Nocturne spoilers, right? We saw that 1-drop spell card that can give this +1 and spell shield. And I think that's exactly where you want to be with this, right? So at 2 HP, there's a lot that's going to die to, at least from a removal standpoint. And giving it that spell shield can make sure that it stays alive for a turn. But then also, depending on what your opponent's playing, if they just drop that, you know, that Solari that's going to be a 3/3, getting this to be a 3/2 quick attack on turn 2 is super important. That said, I think there's going to be some turns where you just say, hey, I have a 2/2 quick attack, and that's probably good enough sometimes. But again, keeping in mind with her level up condition, you've activated Nightfall 4 times. Nocturne, as you've attacked with 5 Nightfall allies. These are really kind of all in and playing off one another. So chances are, if you're playing her, you're going to want to play something else first to make sure that she still gets that effect. And I just really like it because you can either get their weakest blocker off the board just to try to play like that more attrition style, or if they have like some big unit, let's say they have their own Crescent Guardian, right? And let's say that you buffed her up, you can then take away their 5/3 overwhelm with her Challenger effect. There's a lot that this card can be doing, and honestly, it's just kind of insane. Now again, it's a very low costed card, so it also plays into the curve of Nightfall, right? So you can play in a pinch if you really need to. You play like a 1-drop enabler, you play this 2-drop, and then you play another 2-drop on turn 5, and then just get double the Nightfall triggers. So there's a lot that you can really be doing with this because of its a low cost. I know some people are saying that they wanted it to be like a higher costed card, just so it has a little bit better chance to stick around the board. But again, for the sake of the archetype, I think it's coming down at a really, really strong spot. And again, it's going to feel really bad to get her dead to a Mystic Shot every now and again, but sometimes I think that's just the balancing responsibility that you have to take. But also, we have to wait and see how much Spell Shield is really going to impact the meta in just terms of these very greedy control decks that just want to play removal turn after turn after turn, right? So once you've activated Nightfall 4 times, she levels up, gains a health, gains an attack, pretty standard, remains the quick attack Nightfall, or when you activate another Nightfall. So again, has that same kind of Leona effect to it that's saying, okay, well now we're going to have multiple Nightfall triggers in a turn so we can get that effect. Give me +2 and Challenger this round. So I really like this because now it's just a later enabler that you can set up, and then she's becoming a 5/3 very easily, or a 7/3. And quite honestly, a 7/3 quick attack, that is just killing everything, right? So if your opponent has the Ravon card, which is like the sun god that we just all keep referring to him as, the one that says it's always day, you can very easily now line up Diana to just crash into them, take away their engine for making sure they're playing several Daybreak cards in a turn, and that's going to be pretty bloody strong to kind of set them back. Now again, 3 HP might not be that exciting, but again, we are in the region that has both Spell Shield, so you can negate that first spell effect, and granting permanent buffs. So if we, again, want to be really crazy and live the dream, it's not too hard, but we could make this a 6/6 quick attack, pairing it with now Taric, and then just have Taric as this kind of background synergy enabler to just keep buffing her up every turn with permanent effects, and having quick attack just eat away their entire, quick attack and challenger eating away their entire board. So not saying that's the best place for it at all, but just kind of a different, lining or strategies that you might have for this, since activating the Nightfall condition is way less constrictive of a deck building standpoint than says Nocturne, where you have to actually attack with multiple Nightfall units. So in terms of like deck flexibility, right? So Nocturne, because you have to attack with him, he's going to be very locked in. You're going to have run a lot of Nightfall units to make sure you're getting that effect. But Diana, because it's just any Nightfall, right? We've seen quite a few Nightfall spells so far that we can just probably level this up, not too hard, just in other deck strategies. So I do like it for what she might offer. But again, as I mentioned up front, I really am just going to be sticking to the Nocturne and Diana style of deck, just because of how well those two go together. Now, speaking about her champion spell, the Pale Cascade, give an ally +2/+1 this round, shuffle her back in the deck, and then Nightfall, draw 1. So interesting that this is the exact opposite of, what's the card? I'm just now blanking. Zenith Blade, right? That gives +1/+2. So yay, flavor, flavor effect. But I really like this too, especially if you're, most likely you've played a unit, so Nightfall should be active. So now this is just a, buff one of your units, especially on Diana if she has Challenger, maybe get that little bit of extra attack you need. Maybe they played like a Elixir or something, and then it draws a card, so it replaces itself. So I'm really liking that Mount Targon between the Pale Cascade and the Healing Touch, or whatever it was called, from Soraka's card, right? Heal 2 to an ally or Nexus, draw a card. I really like the idea of all these cards being able to cycle themselves, and again, it's just really nice to see how these line up for other Nightfall enablers. Now again, in a perfect world, you want to wait till you have Nightfall to cast this, so you're still drawing the card. But then sometimes just a 2-cost burst, enable Nightfall in a pinch, can be really important. So here's where now the conversation starts to shift. So we have Cygnus the Moonstalker. Nightfall, give me and an ally elusive this round. So again, we know how strong elusive can be. Just getting to ignore your opponent's board, especially if you have like a big body that can crash through for the last little bit of damage you need. This is a very, very offensive card. So it already has 4 attack itself. Chances are you have like a 4 or 5 attack other unit that's going to get through for damage. So this is just a, hey, I'm swinging fray with these 2 units, and generally speaking, you're not going to be able to block them. So do you have the removal? Do you have like a single combat, mystic shot, more of those style of things to interact? And if not, you're just taking a ton of damage. So this is where I now like want to shift the focus from. Obviously, Diana and Nocturne are very, very strong archetype. It feels like the deep of this set, where it's like, again, Maokai and Nautilus pushed together. Diana and Nocturne are pushed together as well. But there's these other enablers that could see play outside of this, right? We've seen people use puff caps for easy plunder triggers, but now puff caps can also be used for easy Nightfall triggers because it's a 1-cost burst spell. What more could you ask for? So warning shots for instant speed Rex activations, those style of cards also can all now work towards Nightfall in other ways. So I think Cygnus is the first, kind of card that I'm like, well, I'm not sure how strong a 6 is going to be at the top end. Like, I feel like this could be a very aggressive deck, and this is like you're running, 1 to 2 of probably just because it's a very strong effect. But now this tells me, okay, well, what other Nightfall cards are we going to get? Is there going to be other things that, maybe even a Leona deck wants, right? Like just a strong value Nightfall effect can then be splashed into other decks. Now, again, you have to also keep in mind that Nightfall gets more difficult to trigger the less focused you are on enabling that in your deck. And what I mean by that is when you have Diana and Nocturne, right, you have all these just baked in 1 and 2 cost burst spells or 1 and 2 costed units that you can very easily save your mana, save your spell mana in particular, and play the unit and then get your Nightfall and everything's perfectly fine. As you move away from that, and maybe you have something like the Yordle Grifter to generate a warning shot, right? Like outside of that very confined interaction, now you're kind of having to sculpt your turn saying, okay, well, what cheap spell can I save? And, hey, we've seen Make It Rain into Riptide Rex before as well, right? It's not as good because you give them a priority, but generally speaking, it works in a pinch. So we have seen this work time and time before where we just keep a relative 2 or 3 costed card, to activate something else, and maybe Nightfall will play into that same role. But again, then you have to realize that you're playing, again, Puff Caps, Yordle Grifters are really great enablers. Just any other rummage in a pinch if you really need it, right? Any of those like low-costed burst cards can really still then help you turn on Nightfall as needed. So we're gonna have to really wait and see what other either spells or units, right? We've seen some very strong Nightfall spell cards that I would love to see, play in other decks, depending on how the deck building economy goes, right? In terms of like how many deck slots you have. But Cygnus and Moonstalker really does say that this could be a chance to kind of break out of the archetype and finally have Nightfall appear in some other areas. But again, for me personally, I'm just going to be sticking with Nocturne and Diana to start. I'm sure somebody else out there will crack the code that has a bit more time to play, but I'm very excited for this archetype because I just really like the combo decisions behind it. And keep in mind, there's going to be turns where you have to decide between playing a 1-cost or a 2-cost spell and how it's going to impact, 2, maybe 3 turns from now, that you could actually lose the game in some situations if you play the wrong spell at the wrong time. So this is going to be not that's going to take super galaxy brain to figure it out, but this does, have a little bit different of a play style or play pattern, I should say, than decks that we've seen today. So it's going to take a little bit of an adaptation to really get the most out of the Nightfall deck. So you're optimizing your turn after turn, making sure you're getting the most Nightfall triggers you can. From there, we got, another Soraka card. So sorry, Soraka's most likely not coming tomorrow because they wouldn't spoil all of Soraka's cards in other champion spoilers, right? It's funny to me that people are still defending that Soraka is going to be the next champion, but all these cards would have been in her reveal if that's true. So if I'm wrong, I'll give away 3 Mount Targon boards and card packages or card sleeves, like the Lunari and Solari. Card backs, that's the word I'm looking for. So hey, if I'm wrong and it's not Aurelion Sol, come back tomorrow at the time of this recording and tell me I'm wrong, and we'll do a giveaway in the Discord. So 3-cost burst, Hush, silence a unit this round, create a fleeting Hush in hand. So I want to love this card, and it's also really interesting that Mount Targon has not 1 but now 2 cards that can silence champions. And I guess maybe a small disclaimer here. So now I'm starting to believe that this is just going to be a Mount Targon thing. And I talked about this in the Discord for quite a bit of time, even before Rising Tides, right? There are still at least 2 or 3 more regions that are going to be introduced into Legends of Runeterra, and we don't know what those identities are going to look like. So, for Mount Targon, we've seen now granting permanent effects, and now silencing are kind of like the backbone things that's unique to them. And other regions are going to have other mechanics, right? So it's really difficult to understand what the big meta picture is going to look like. Now, obviously, we still have to, play the game now, right? So we have to care about the meta today. But I'm super looking forward to what this game looks like. I think it's 1.5 years by now by their roadmap, or 2 years by now, based on the roadmap. Once we have all the regions implemented, how fun it's going to be to see all these different unique effects start to play off one another, and just what kind of deck building properties are going to look like, or what decks are going to, function as once we have that many different dynamic and interesting, I guess I should say, deck building choices that we have to make, right? Do I want the permanent buffs and silence? Do I want the more burn spells of PNZ? Do I want the revive package of Shadow Isles? Do I just want the big boards and battle combat of Demacia? It's great. I absolutely love it. It's a super, super fun thing that they've been doing, and I'm really looking forward to other regions getting introduced. So, back on topic, 3-cost burst, Hush, silence unit, create fleeting. So, I do appreciate that this creates a fleeting Hush in hand, but, one, how relevant has Purify been, right? It's been a very hit or miss card from the start, right? All-in Fiora decks and all-in Braum decks could get around it, but now Sunburst and Hush can actually target champions. So, I mean, those decks don't see a lot of play, at least in Masters and what I've seen so far. So, Purify, if it could hit champions, still wasn't that main deckable. So, Hush costing 1 more, but creating a fleeting so you can play it twice in a turn. I don't know. It just doesn't seem that interesting to me. So, I wonder if this is just in response to Mount Targon, right? Getting all of these permanent stat buffs, so you can create a very a snowball-y style of deck, and this might be why that they're introducing this. Interesting to note here is that it's only this round, right? And we also saw Whimsy out of Ionia that turns it into a 1/1. It's like the polymorph effect, right? But again, at the end of the round, they're just going to go back to whatever they were. So something like a Neverglade Collector, sure, you might be able to stop taking 5 damage for that turn because they swing all out, you silence your Neverglade, you block their board, you don't take the damage effect, then it reverts back end of turn. But then you still have to do something with that card that's kind of like just sitting on the bench waving at you like, hi, I'm still here. And it's going to be interesting. So I'm curious to see if there's other like big units or big effects that we're going to care about. I'm rating this super low, right? So again, this is a card to me that if we had sideboards, I would be super all in for. I'd say, yeah, obviously it's a sideboard card. Throw it in there, auto include, easy GG, right? But that's not the case. That's not how ladder works, and that's not how Runeterra works. So in terms of like the spoilers that we've seen so far and like the overall playability and where they're going to be popping up in the meta, this feels like the worst card. And again, not worst in terms of effect, but just worst in terms of playability because the meta hasn't aligned itself to really call for this card. Right now, you might say, well, Purify has been really good against They Who Endure, right? Like they try to make a big attack, you go boop and make them a 1/1. I block them, haha, I win. Yeah, but that's one deck out of like what, the 15 other ones that you might run into. It kind of feels pretty bad. And sure, there's other like niche interactions where if like you can counter a well-timed Fury or something, again, assuming it's not on a champion, I guess, but at least for as much as I've been trying to play Purify, I've never been excited for it. And casting 2 Purifies in a round, I mean, hasn't really been that important. Now, obviously, the very unlikely scenario, they have a big They Who Endure, they attack, you're somehow still alive, they play a second, big They Who Endure, well, yeah, now suddenly Hush becomes like the best card in the meta because you can silence both of them in a turn, block them, and then they probably lose on the spot. Again, overall, it's very strong for what it can do. I love the fact that it can silence champions, but until we see more of the meta develop into these what are known as Voltron strategies, where it's like all in on one champion, or just cards like Heart of the Fluff, right, where you go all in on one big unit, and then you have like spell shield to protect it. Until we see like more of that stuff happening, I really don't see a place for like Hush and Purify in the meta. And then for the last card, oh my god, he is so cute. That they just decided to sneak in here is Poro Cannon. So I just can't get over this artwork. I really can't. It's adorable. And I love how like it's probably hard to see in here, so you'll have to like look at the full art when it's available. But then you just like see the little Poro in the background like ready to light the cannon on him. And yeah, so it's a 0-cost Poro Cannon. To play it, discard 1, create 2 Daring Poros in hand, so the elusive one. Again, it's cool that it's a 0-cost Poro enabler, my god. It's a 0-cost Nightfall enabler that also can get you some Poros that have elusive, and then can also be 1-drops that help future Nightfall turns. So I like it for that, but it's like, well, how much do we care about PNZ and Nightfall combining together, right? Is there just a Nightfall card that's going to be very strong in PNZ style of decks that we haven't seen yet that makes me want to run Poro Cannon? I mean, still probably not. Like, I'd still rather just have like mushrooms, right? Like, just play Chump Lump, just play Rummage, like play that spell package again, and then those are still Nightfall enablers. Like, I don't see a world where Poro Cannon is going to be loved by all other than for its artwork and see a ton of play. But I am damn it, it's just a really cute card. So I'm going to be building a new Poro deck, right? I featured one on the channel. I think it's like a month and a half ago now. And then on stream, I was playing the Aurora Borealis deck after it got buffed, which was really strong. And funny enough, it was PNZ and Freljord. And for at least that deck, because you want elusive units, and because you're going to be buffing up all the Poros in your deck, in that one really niche deck that I put together, Poro Cannon seems kind of sweet. Like, I'm for it. But again, outside of that, I don't know. I'm not that hyped up for it. So that brings us to a close on the Nightfall archetype, at least until we get other spoilers. If there's any other Nightfall cards, right, I should specify. But tomorrow, keep in mind, Twitter, Discord, whatever community that you're engaged in, make sure you're checking them. We don't know the full details. Riot hasn't told us anything. Again, keep in mind, I'm a mod in the official Discord, and we still haven't heard anything, which kind of sucks. So I'm hoping a schedule gets posted sometime today, but a bunch of content creators are getting together and releasing cards every single hour tomorrow. So we are getting a ton more spoilers tomorrow to look forward to. And then also, Aurelion Sol's around the corner. So, yeah, Tomorrow's going to be super hype. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are excited as well. Legends of Runeterra, as always, is looking really, really great. So with that, spoiler season's almost wrapped up. Only 1 or 2 more videos to go, most likely. But with that, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe and drop a like. That helps me out a ton. And then, of course, if you want to see more, decks coming with set 3, I will be streaming all day on the 26th. When the set drops, I'll probably do a video that night, so I'll have a video out on the 27th. But again, assuming we get Aurelion Sol, I'll be playing all Aurelion Sol decks on the 26th. So if that's something that you're interested in, go check me out on Twitch. Or I guess it's that side. Up there in the corner is the logo, twitch.tv/cosmicplays. That's where you can find me Monday through Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So with that, I love this archetype. It's by far my favorite so far, and I can only hope that tomorrow Aurelion Sol is even better. So with that, see everybody tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Drink your water, be safe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.